Good morning. It is 10 o'clock and we are starting the KER Cast. I am your host, Victor Montori, and on behalf of the Knowledge and Evaluation Research Unit, we would like to welcome you to these KER Casts. The purpose of the KER Cast is to discuss with distinguished guests about their careers, their lives, their principles, and how these connect with the goal that we have of helping care fit in the lives of patients. Our first guest is Roberto Benzo. Dr. Benzo is a physician at the Mayo Clinic, a distinguished investigator and researcher into how might we improve the lives of patients with breathlessness. He's federally funded, manages a large research team, and has been successful in developing and implementing a series of interventions using mindfulness and coaching that allow patients with breathlessness to live better lives. Roberto, welcome to the KER Cast.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Excellent. So to start our conversation, one of the things that we would like to understand is how is it that people become who they are? How is it that they arrive at a situation in their life where they are Roberto Benzo? Tell us a little bit about what has motivated your journey.
Well, I think it's a lot of passion, I think, uh, trying to have some kind of a sense where you're going, and but also being humble enough that you don't control all the variables.
What do you mean
And
you don't control the variables? What is that?
there's a lot of serendipity in life, and then I think that we need to honor that things happen, and then we need to prepare for them, and then we start kind of pressing buttons that are in front of us. We don't press any button that is just too far. You press the one that is at the reach of your hand, and for that you have to be very very attentive, and that I think that it's like Steve Jobs kind of addressed the Stanford commencement one time and said, "You really connect the dot backwards." I mean, really, I mean, the thing is that you don't really know right now to kind of say forward what is going to happen, but you actually, when you look it back, you say, "Oh, that happened, and I was able to press that button, and then it took me to another place." I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing right now. I mean, I kind of have sense of caring for patients, and but but there were some crises that you go for when I realized that I don't fix everybody. I don't fix at all. And
So, so, so what you're telling me is when somebody asks you, "Oh, what are you going to do when you grow up?" You couldn't answer what you're doing right now.
we talked before about how you plan for the future. I think that you plan for the future standing very well where you are right now. I think that you actually, what now? So the thing is that what is it that you're really passionate about, that you're really willing to put 100% behind, and then move forward? And that may not be what society or your father or your mentor wants.
Or,
So,
or research funders, right? Because in research funders would like you to set up a career plan, a career goal, and it's always set up in 5-year time periods. And I think as the cruel joke goes, nobody sitting in 2020 would have answered in 2015, what do you plan to do in 5 years? We wouldn't be in the midst of COVID. It's a strange expectation, isn't it? That we can plan ahead with such a long runway.
it's also a lot of courage. I think that I I think that when you are really working on creativity, there are a couple of things that you need to know. I mean, are important for me: being curious and overcoming the fear of changing. So the thing is that I mean, when I had my initial funding, the K, and then of course I was learning, avid to kind of drink every drop of my mentor's comments. But the issue is, at some point I realized that I didn't belong, that I was kind of going into another direction. I used to be in an institution that honor kind of molecules and genes, and I was doing self-management, talking about people quality of life and what is important for you today. So, so it kind of I was out of favor of that environment, and I said to myself, I need to go somewhere else. And then, Mayo Clinic came to my journey. I don't know. So, what I can tell you is serendipity exists. Life is bubbling in the present moment. Things are
Mm.
actually bubbling in front of you if you're attentive to push that button. And that's my
So
experience.
it sounds like paying attention, being present, being acceptance of chance, and being able to act on chance have been important to get you where you are.
And having the passion. So knowing exactly what
I
actually.
can't tell that you have any passion. I don't know. I mean, you seem to hide it well. Yeah.
It's like, what actually moves you? It's like, I think it's a question that we need to ask permanently. And that changes life. Change, it's very promiscuous, because what moves you now, it doesn't really, I mean, and maybe that doesn't move you again, but it's kind of, life is kind of bubbling in the present moment. It's the eternal now, so that is, I think, an important thing to go to
So
to
if I
become.
were to ask you, what has been the primary value that has moved you through your research career or through your personal life, what would the primary value be?
I think I wanted to make people comfortable, content with their life. I think that was something that stayed with me since I became a resident. It's like, I think that goes beyond knowledge. Is that has stayed with me, and then also kind of at the same time, kind of creating condition for contentment, and then also have that authenticity when you're talking to people, and you know, I mean, the one thing I mentioned in our when we chat before together is like the number one patient that you need to change or work on is the one that you see in the mirror, and so I started to kind of make sure that I can produce that contentment and degree of authenticity with my own self. But the thing is that I would say that was stay with me in my career as uh, and then founded is the foundation of what then became my research and my work.
It sounds like authenticity was the one of the triggers that moved you from realizing that the molecular was not yours, that the environment that honors that was not yours, and that you had to. In the care unit, in our research unit, we have three values that we think orient our work and bring us together: patient-centeredness, integrity, and generosity. Do any of those ring particularly close to your heart?
Generosity, I think, is what I think is what actually gave me the biggest, if you will, satisfaction. Is is what's going out, what is coming in. So it's like this. It's like I prove myself again and again that sometimes I think I'm not giving anything, and people are so appreciative. And I ask myself, oh, what? We're just chatting. We're just kind of discussing. We just kind of, but it's like, I think that and then generosity means a lot of attention, a lot of attention to it. I'm just saying, when we are in an encounter with a friend, with a patient, it's about how much are you there. One of my teachers says, if you're thinking too much, you're not here. So the point is that how much are you really there? And people actually have this sincerity meter inside that knows that you are actually completely there. And so that generosity starts with our attention, I think.
So going to this work that you do with mindfulness to help people with breathlessness, what role does generosity play in that?
Well, the main thing is that I would say, listen. So when in every coaching call and every health coaching call, the biggest mindfulness part is to listen, to just shut up, and to just drop everything. Drop the idea that you want to change people. Kind of what's going on with you, Victor. So tell me about it. And becoming genuinely curious about it. I think that I am convinced I became a better doctor since I listened more. Or it's not that I got it, let's just get that very clear. It's like it's the intent, is the always climbing, trying to kind of get to this idea of total attention, or and I would say refocus, kind of your mind was somewhere else, you just bring it back here, kind of and I think that it made me more attentive to not only to the conversation, but more attentive to the lab values, to attentive to the CT scan, to attentive to interpreting the data, kind of putting together the data into actually the patient condition. So I think that to me has been one of my assets, or the thing that had me be trying to be a better doctor, if you will.
So Roberto, you are a breathlessness expert, and one of the things that characterizes 2020 is breathlessness, right? We have gone from COVID taking away people's ability to breathe, to the George Floyd murder, which has George Floyd's final words be, "I can't breathe." Breathlessness has been a description of this year, and it finds you as one of the world's preeminent breathlessness expert, and using a approach towards mindfulness that helps patients. You want to tell us a little bit about how is it that this approach helps patients with breathlessness, and perhaps we can listen to this with two ears. One is as a clinical tool, which is how I think you've developed it, but also to think of it as a strategy to deal with the breathlessness of 2020.
Yeah, so I think that the one thing to realize is that breathlessness is very promiscuous too. So the thing is that there's a lot of stuff that make you short of breath. And even if your lungs are fine, many people say, I cannot breathe, and the lungs are completely fine. So there are many factors that goes into the feeling short of breath. And it's good to actually pay attention to those. Is that something that is coming from kind of a pneumonia due to COVID? Or it's because somebody's actually grabbing your neck? Or is somebody because you're just sad or anxious? Or so there are many things that actually go into that. So I think that what we're trying to do is to try to kind of tease out those different things. So of course I'm a doctor. I want to see the lung function. I want to see the X-ray. I want to see all those things. But also I realized over the years that there are many other things that bring you to this sense of I cannot breathe. And so the thing is that we try to kind of, if you will, synergize the power of knowledge, but also with the power of listening, and the power to kind of find out what are the things that we can fix. I deal with patients with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, smoking-related lung disease, and then we cannot regenerate those lungs. But I can tell you that shortness of breath improve with interventions that not necessarily improve the lung function. And that is actually will keep us going, because the thing is that what is it that we actually can get better? What are the factors that we can improve? So we work on obesity, and obesity is a Pandora box, because I mean that means the awareness what you eat, how much you move. I mean the thing is that the how you see your body, and then all the way to physical activity, all the way to meaning in life, all the way to relationships. I mean relationships, one of the things that take our breath away so many times, in a good way and in a bad way. So the thing is that the thing is that if you will, is a multi-component approach to breathlessness. And remember, when people come to Mayo Clinic, they already receive every bronchodilator under the sun. And the thing is that we're looking outside the box. We're looking at trying to kind of see the big picture, the helicopter view of the breathlessness of the patient. And for that, you need to kind of.
You still got me at the breathlessness of relationships. I'm still stuck there for a second. Thank you for that. Tell me, so how does it work? So if I'm a patient with difficulty breathing, and I'm in your program, what is my experience?
Well, number one, you actually, again, when we get to these patients, they already have if you will, the basic assessment on the physiology. So that we kind of characterize a patient that is if you will, has the standards of care that you need, and then we start to tease out these other parts. And so my current work is on remote monitoring and then home-based programs in which people wear like a Garmin, and they actually need to go into the tablet and they put how much short. I mean, overall, how are you today? Well-being, the level of fatigue, the level of shortness of breath, and the step and the progression to the step goal that they actually agree with their coach. And so the thing is, so we talk about those things, and then we discuss about some physiologic factors, because people actually do some yoga at home and move, and then we check their oxygen, and then we see if there's any desaturation of oxygen. But the point is that we try to kind of go over the amount of steps, at what time you actually move. Tell me more about that. People actually to become more confident and self-efficacious of what they are doing. Also, we set a step goal, and then the step goal, I mean, it can be also graded every day. And if you, we use techniques of behavioral economics, because if you actually achieve the step goal, 25 cents per day go to UNICEF for a child hunger. And if you actually go for beyond 1,000 steps from your step goal, 50 cents per day go to UNICEF for child hunger. So they are seeing that things are bigger than themselves, Not only that they owe the step goal to actually feel better, because physical activity improves everything under the sun. Picture yourself that kid that actually received that 50 cents from you.
So it's interesting that the intervention itself introduces generosity into the intervention itself.
Yeah, so that is how it looks like. So, but the thing is that, and then a theme by itself can take the whole health coaching call. It can be that we're talking about your daily steps, and steps is a behavioral, is very strong, if you will, measure, because you do steps to do things that you want to, or at least you try to. We investigate that. What is it that you're doing with these 500 or 6,000 steps? I mean, so it's kind of it's a cool conversation in itself. Then we talk about how they rate their well-being. Tell me about also, like, tell me about that day in which you said the well-being was excellent. Oh, my kid came to home, or I did went to actually see my father in the hospice, or something like that. Then you start to identify things that provide meaning. We also try to kind of tease out the difference between meaning and happiness, in the way that happiness has to do with will actually give you this sense of joy. Now, meaning is something long-term that you actually do it. And many times when generosity kind of put those two together, kind of, I think it's the link of meaning and happiness going together. So generosity is big, kindness is big. So, you can, it's usually a 20-minute call for 12 weeks. And that's the intervention that we're testing, that we're trying to now to roll out as an implementation intervention. And one of the things that stay in my mind, like the last few years, is that who's going to pay for this? But the thing is this: look at serendipity in life. 2 years ago, Medicare came with remote patient monitoring codes, and then we end up having, those fit with our intervention, and we're rolling out something that actually will have, it will be cost zero, probably will make some money, not a lot of money, but the return on investment, decreasing rehospitalization, COPD, improving quality of life, improving behavior.
You have an implementation package in that.
Right. I mean, so it's like, how do we can put it in the field. That's it. And what did I do for that? I did nothing. That it was life that wanted to happen. So, that having that, I think that having that great hope that what you're doing really will pay off. I mean, hope, I think, has everything to do with high performance.
Yeah.
And because, as I said before, we can control the variables.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you are at the KER Cast, and we're talking to Roberto Benzo from the Mayo Clinic. As you can hear, is a passionate researcher in helping patients with chronic conditions through mindfulness and implementing that in the course of clinical care and in patients' lives. Roberto, what's your favorite collaboration?
Well, the biggest collaboration I had in my life is my wife. I would be nothing without her. And I was kind of a very good student in medical school. We got married when I was in medical school, so she made me finish, and then she supported me in my career here when I was a non-speaking medical resident. not speaking English, medical resident, kind of a very broken English. So I went through a lot. So I think that was my biggest and most successful collaboration.
It also seems to me that that was your first experience with major luck.
Yes, serendipity, the most positive way you can think of. And but I think that I learned that I want to really pick what is my inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that I really believe in a in a culture-based in a relationship-based organization. My lab is a relationship-based lab. We care about each other. We really do, hands down. And the other thing is that collaboration means that people working with me will do things I don't know how to do, and or I don't do it as well. And then so it's I think I really believe that that's why I'm kind of a collaboration. Yeah, but I want to make it to happen, and in the way that I really want to be on that relationship, and for that to work, it needs to be a relationship based organization.
So your program is based on coaching. Have you had a collaboration with a somebody who has made coaching phenomenal?
Well, yeah, well, I didn't invented that. I mean, over the years, I work with tremendous people that some of them taught me coaching. And the other day, they told me, maybe I mentioned coaching to you, but it was already inside you. So I think that this is what actually great collaborators are. It's like they find something inside you that is worth cultivating, and then you grow out of that. And so I did have, since I came to the Mayo Clinic, I work with tremendous people, and I would say I wouldn't be here if it were not for them, because I didn't know about coaching before coming to Mayo Clinic. It's not that I knew it, I got it before.
But most listeners will hear about coaching, and unless they're initiated into this kind of health coaching, they will think, like you mean like athletes, right? And so, have you been being coached by someone in that circumstance?
Okay, thank you. I was touched in my life to be trained by Michael Gervais, and which is the sports psychologist of the Seattle Seahawks, and who worked with
The
Pete
Seattle
Carroll.
Seahawks are a football team, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm a soccer guy, so I have no idea what it is.
No, but it's like the thing is that they do have that culture. I mean, Pete Carroll, the head coach, and Michael Gervais kind of a crochet coined this idea of kind of merging the mindfulness and a lot of other things like philosophy. What's your philosophy in life? What guide you? Vision? Where do you want to go? I mean,
they do that with the football players.
Yes, I mean, but the thing is that now it's like now it's infecting kind of they did that work in Boeing, Starbucks, Microsoft, Netflix. I mean, so it's so I learned that, and it's like one of those things that you said, okay, things that actually make you different after you learn those kind of things. So I learned that high performance only happens in the present moment. That was profound to me, because we were talking about mindfulness and the present moment. They said very clear to you, high performance only happens now. So the thing is that also I learned, and I coined this idea that it's okay to win the Super Bowl. I think it's much stronger is to say in the last 15 years, we went to the playoff 15 times. So you are on that top level. You are on that, it's like, I will never get a Nobel Prize, I know that. But the issue is that I will try to kind of get my ideas to be funded and to be disseminated and to be implemented and help people. So trying to be on that, that level of, if you will, intensity, and to be able to be at that sustained high performance.
Hmm.
You know,
The people that are watching you are seeing something behind you, but the people that are listening to this may not. You have a sign in the back behind you that says "Enough is possible." What's that about?
oh, that's a work on Peter Tenney. Peter Tenney is an artist that he used to be um, a broker in Wall Street, and then at some point he decided to kind of leave that life of making money or thinking about money into disseminating his art and his philosophy of life, and he kind of co-founded Wynwood, which is an art neighborhood in Miami, and and he has things like that. And comments so his work is like time is now, but enough is possible is very profound because is fostering the idea of enoughness. It's like stopping the idea that something is missing to the present moment. So is but for that enough is possible. Kind of to me, it's a practice because you only know the enoughness when you stop, when you actually have the helicopter view, and
Mm.
so it's like otherwise it's I think that the idea that happiness is now. So it's not happiness is not coming when I do this and I do that. It's kind of let's put happiness before and before before doing things. Many times the paradigm is do this and then you will achieve it. I think how about if we achieve it and let's see what we do. And so enough if possible. I think is recognizing that the enoughness of life now, and I think that again this guy kind of when I was walking this neighborhood in Wynwood in Miami, and I met his art, I became completely in love with this idea of delivering very short but profound antibodies, and I couldn't stop myself.
I'm glad you were paying attention to it.
It's like it's such those simple things that struck you. You kind of
That
walk
make a
in the middle of
difference.
it.
So this guy went from money to meaning, which I think takes me to ask you. So what's the meaning of your work? What does it mean what you do?
Uh, I think that we're delivering. We're trying to foster people to discover meaningness and meaning in life and enoughness, and in the context of that, some happiness. And then I think that goes hand to hand with all the outcomes that every institution is willing. Hospitalizations, ER visits, days in the hospital. We just recently published that people that actually that loneliness I mean, independently associated with ER visits in patients with COPD. So the reason behind that is that when you are not lonely, when you have somebody to ask about, hey Victor, what can I do? I'm very short of breath. I didn't do it. So when you have nobody to actually ask anything in your life, and you feel socially distant, and then the first thing you do is 911, and you end up in the ER when there's a problem.
Mm.
So I think that there are some factors that are the very core of your life that is kind of a very primitive stuff, like feeling lonely or not. And so that has to do with ending up in the hospital or not. So not everything is.
So going back to the COVID analogy, with breathlessness, we are isolated, we are lonely, we are separated from each other, we are feeling constrained, perhaps even breathless. And you're saying that through this process of mindfulness and coaching, you move people from panicking when the breathlessness rises to a certain level and then seeking medical care in the emergency room and so forth, to a situation where they're able to recognize what's going on and manage it in a way that is different, that doesn't call for that kind of help. Um, am I getting that right? Is that sort of the reframing that you do? How would that help us now? How would that help us now in this time? How does it help you? Do you reframe? Do you find meaning in these times in ways that won't make you don't let yourself panic and go running for help?
So I think that we try to create conditions for people to express themselves, particularly in situations like this in which we are, if you will, physically isolated. So I think that there's a lot of engagement between the coaches and the patients, and there's a lot that we learn from just listening to our own words. So it's like when you go to and get some psychotherapy, and then many times they just listen to you, and then you actually kind of listen to what you're saying, which is your own self, and then you make decisions out of that. We try to kind of create coaching by itself is a clinical decision support tool. So the thing is that it's like allows people to make good decisions. I mean, and to at least to weigh those decisions with that person that they trust so much, which is the coach. Uh, so, and then we try to be very focused. It's not chatty. I mean, the essence is to engage people, make sure that you are there with them, and they know that, and then to focus on something, to evoke what is important for them in those things that they want to talk about, and then you make a plan. So
Very
it's
good. So I'd like to invite the attendees to begin to use the Q&A box to ask some questions of Roberto as we go into this next section here. I'll be paying attention to those questions and try to ask them as well. So we've learned so far that you've gotten to be who you are through paying attention, responding, letting serendipity guide you, being authentic, build on strong collaborations, and bring a spirit of support, connection, humanity, to the work that you do, to the intervention design, to the implementation process that you followed, and that you do it in the collaboration of people in your lab. And you said that you care deeply for each other. Um, our unit is interested in this notion of care. What does care mean to you, and how do you think we do better when we make care fit in the lives of the patients that we care for?
so we usually say in the lab that we want to make sure that what we're doing matters to each one of us. That is beyond work. We all grind with work every day with things that we don't like, but the thing is that most of the time the overarching idea is that we're doing something that is making a difference, and then kind of every one of us is kind of convinced that we are a critical piece of that machine, and so is that's why we coined the idea that team, the word team, doesn't have an I in it. There's no I in team. So there's no letter I. It's pretty much about the group. And so and the other thing is that there's a great deal of sincerity that need to happen. And so you need to go, yeah, we are a team as soon as you do your work. So it's like it's so. And the other thing is that things are done many times in other ways that I would do it, and that took me a while to actually understand that. But the thing is that, and they're done probably better. No. Forget probably. It's kind of off the record. Probably things are done better because I don't have my hands into it. So the thing is that this level of, if you will, trust that people are putting their best to do things is a very, very, very important part of that. It's like, yeah, do it, but show it to me before. So it's like, I think that trust is one of the things that also is one of the issues, one of the key factors in high performance and in a relationship-based organization.
It creates conditions for flourishing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that if I want to comment of Steve Jobs again. Steve Jobs said, if you ask yourself 5 days in a row why you're doing what you're doing, you probably could be thinking about doing something else. So the thing is that, so the issue is that everybody there is kind of I mean, I asked them to do that question, so to make sure that we are kind of pushing along like a kind of in as you know as together, it's and it's something that you build, and as I mentioned before to you, Victor, it's not that I got it. I'm trying. So I think that I see myself. I mean,
Yeah, but you're trying, but you're already at a very high level. And so one of the questions that we've received is, what advice do you give people who are still looking to find the sense of meaning in their work?
uh, well, the thing is, uh, so ask that question. So it's so you can put your phone away. To stop the TV, sit down and start asking that question while you're walking now in the middle of the fall. And so what is it? It's kind of it's a self-discovery. So the prayer is about what is meaningful for me or not. And the thing is that, let me just say this: it's not that tomorrow you actually can change everything, because we also need to pay the rent, and we have food in the place of our kids. But the thing is that life is fair, and it will bring you to a decision tree, and of actually changing. In order to change, you need to get there with that sense. Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. Like,
Mm.
so I think that ask yourself many times what is the good and the not so good of what you're doing, and pay a lot of attention to opportunities in front of you.
Some of us are afraid to ask that question, and I think
Yeah.
fear is an important barrier or motivator, right?
Yep.
So I've actually have a question that is coming, and they're asking you, what is a challenge that you had to overcome, and how has overcoming that challenge impacted your work?
Um, yeah. So I think that one of the challenges that I need to face is that at some point I think everything kind of depending on my decision, or everything kind of depending on me, or what I actually say. I think that trusting more was a very important part of me moving forward.
Mm.
Trusting more people around me, that they so is that's why collaboration is important, but also picking who you're working with, and then make that decision. And that so yes, I think that was one. So kind of stop thinking about that you can control. I think that everything, and then because in the context of passion, oh yeah, we want to do this, and I want to do it in that way. Then no, wait a minute, this is the direction, but may not be the right way. So, and then stop and listen, and because people around you may be able to have the answer, or try other things. So that kind of that was something that was a challenge for me. Uh,
It's
yeah.
interesting because I grew up with my dad telling me that my approach to deal with challenges, if you imagine a challenge like a wall, was to just run really quickly against the wall and just try to crush through it. And he always encouraged me to find ways around it or over, and not that I don't have to go head first into the wall. And in fact, one of the questions that we've received is, how do you encounter adversity? Do you feel it as a barrier to work around, as a challenge to face and overcome, or as a block to navigate around to avoid? Clearly, the person asking the question doesn't use my approach, is just trying to go through it. So how do you take those apparent barriers? How do you handle them?
There is a Zen saying, "The obstacle is the path."
Mm.
The obstacle is the path. I think that the obstacle is what actually will pay kind of a higher attention. How we actually will move. Think about the water when it comes from the top of the mountain and encounter a rock. It does just go on the side. It doesn't really try to push the rock to actually go through. It just go on the side. So we just need to be like water. kind of try to find out a way around that situation. So I think that is difficult, but it's meaningful. So it's important. It's about seeing those problems as an opportunity of higher awareness. And for that, you need to stop on a daily basis, because problems kind of pop up like, permanently. And knowing yourself that you need help. And then try to get your circle to help you. But the point is, I'm going back to the point. I think it's a cliche, but I really think it is right. Problems, challenges are opportunities, and I became to love challenge. And I think that when you go into the high performance field, I mean, when I learned from the Seattle Seahawks and their organization, is that people that are Olympians, people that are at that level, love challenge. They just love it, kind of bring it on. So the thing is that, it's like, so the thing is that, and you have to be also, I like to quote the people from the Persuasion Lab in Stanford, that they are working on how attention is being paid, because attention is one of the biggest commodity in a lifetime. So the thing is that they work on tiny habits. They work on tiny things, like floss one tooth. Like what I'm trying to say with that is that when you're trying to kind of change your path in front of you, start very small, but that will create a condition to go to the next level. So it will be to two tooth, and then your whole teeth. And so it's really a process, and identifying the problem, finding a tiny change, prove it, go back. For that, you need to kind of sit down
and for many of our listeners who are involved in improvement, this is part of the mantra. One of the questions that we get is that there is this challenge of generosity when it comes to clinical care, and the person asking the question is quite concerned that some people, perhaps even people with your passion and your commitment, might come to care with a lot of generosity and a lot to give, and that could have, and the question asker points to two potential problems. One is that over eagerness to help might be misguided and might do more harm than good. And the other one is that it might end up extinguishing whatever energy that you have that brought you in the first place. You're a passionate guy. You're coming in all in. How do you manage that? What are the boundaries of that generosity that you bring to your work?
So we need to make a good distinction between cheerleading people with the sense of generosity of your attention. So I'm actually pretty serious, and but I sit with a patient and I listen. I try to listen very deeply, trying to find out what is needed, what is possible. The other thing I do is I want to make sure that when I get there, I am balanced myself. So it's like when you want to make sure that you are in a good position to give. Some days you and me and everybody in the world have situations, and then some days you're not upbeat. So the thing is that there's a lot, as I said before, the biggest patient you want to change is the one you see in the mirror. So you start by actually trying to make sure that you're generous with yourself, you're attentive to a condition today. If you have a problem with your wife today, or your kid, or your bank account, you probably will not be the same thing as other days. So the thing is that, we are careful. And the other thing is that when I sit with a patient, I need to pay attention to what I need to pay attention. So of course, it's not that I'm going to be talking about mindfulness and the obstacle is the path. I just need to make sure that the lung function is fine, the X-rays is perfect. And so the thing is that we put together the whole thing, and that is what actually we need to try to get. Health comes from the word whole. I mean, that means that health is about being in balance with everything that is going on. So the thing is that, but we need to we as provider, we try to put that together. I mean, cheerleading doesn't help anybody. Of course, we can be cheerful and tell you, but
Yeah.
but the issue is that this cheerleading is not coaching.
So,
So I
so,
think
so, to hold on, so just to be clear, when you talk about generosity, what do you mean by generosity?
it's giving myself completely to the present moment with the patient.
Giving yourself completely to the present moment with the patient.
So in that, we're talking about the medical act, right? So
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, but I think, but the same happened with your kid. The same happened with your wife. The same happened with your friend. The same happened when you actually when you're riding a bike. Just ride, okay? Don't do anything. Just ride, or just swim, or just run, or just jump. It's that wholeheartedness that you actually put.
But multitasking is lovely, isn't it?
Well, I think it's applicable. I think that the beauty of this, Victor, is that it's applicable to every walk of life.
Hmm.
So the thing is that, so sometimes, of course, and you make mistakes. Sometimes you go too much and to be too cheerful with the patient, and he or she doesn't like it. But the point is that, are you paying attention to this? To what actually need to be pay attention in the moment. So they are coming to the Mayo Clinic because they want to do what to do with their lungs. So let's start being very clear. I
So
mean, what so.
yeah, competence and compassion, not just one or the other.
I think the actual alchemia is to actually put it together, and then kind of
Hmm.
and getting something better. Like is a
So
more.
talking about that, if you were to think about uh, for someone who's paying attention to what's going on and trying to serve the serendipity, have you gotten to a point where you wish you had done something differently?
Uh, I ask very careful to myself if if there will be any benefit of that kind of questioning. So yes, but so to make sure that you're not always kind of reflecting on, oh, I should have done this, I should have, because now the present moment is full of those kind of frustrations. Okay,
Mm.
but the point, yes, I mean, you look carefully at, I mean, that's the essence of examining life in the present moment. So the thing is that it's not a kind of a cognitive thing. You just sit down with what is happening. If you actually feel that you did something that it should be done different, you just do it, or you just do it. You put the conditions for that to happen different in the next time.
Mm.
Yeah. So
You've hinted at a notion of self-care, right? That there's a notion that when you show up and so forth, and you want to be in the moment, there seems to be a discipline behind this, and not just mentally to be present, but puts you in a good place. How do you do you separate your life from your work? Is it a big soup, or do you have boundaries? How do you handle that's the famous balance of work and life?
I think that.
Or is that's an artificial construct that you don't pay attention?
Well, I really don't. I think that, I think that, and so I think that I'm not sure if this work-life balance. I think there is life, and we're trying to balance, and we try to be balanced with that. So I think that I like so much what I do that
Yeah, you seem to have integrated your work into your life and your life approach to your work approach in a way that it seems seamless at the moment.
Well, the thing is that, but let me, many times I think about a mechanic, or I think about a janitor I mean, in which all those professions are noble by themselves, but probably you probably don't choose. Sometimes you are forced to do things that you don't like. I mean, I'm coming from a country in which a lot of people are workers and poor, and so the thing is that those people, sometimes they cannot really find the same degree of enjoyment that I have in my own work, but they are looking, they're trying to survive with that, and then they try balance come from other things like having having the great degree of community that happens in the Latin countries, and also what they do. I mean, watching soccer and getting together. So other things that are compensating that other thing that we need to grind for a higher meaning, because you have to pay the rent, you have to kind of bring food to your kids. So it's not easy.
So you're in an academic medical center. How do you balance all these, being mindful and generous with the people you work with your patients, with your colleagues, with this notion that you have to be strategic politically, if, even in the way you handle yourself in an academic medical center that is often set up to be very hierarchical and results focused? How do you handle that bit? Or is that one of those things that you also don't care about?
Well, I my politic is no politic. So I try to be sincere, really, and I've
Well,
been.
some of us, when we are trying to be sincere, we get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, well, the thing is that sometimes is the way we are sincere, and but I think that I try to float with the system, and if I can do something to improve it, I will do it. I but I like the idea of like a cork that floats in the water. I try to flow with the system, understand it, and then making sure that I have an opportunity to actually say something or change something. I think that in my experience, opportunities came to me in which they ask me for stuff. I don't try to go change anything. It's just in coaching. I don't want to change anybody anything, because we don't change people by telling how to do it or what to do. We don't change that. Behavior change doesn't happen that way. It happens when you create conditions to change.
It's a magical thing when I listen to you, Roberto, because you get the sense of someone with a very clear direction, or directionality, I guess might be the term, in your life. And yet your metaphor is a cork on the water. No sail to catch the wind, no rudder to direct. Serendipity as an explanation for your success. It's hard to maintain but you do it, right? But it's hard to keep those two ideas in balance, a clear way of looking at the world and how you're going to be in it, and at the same time being completely open to what the present brings.
Let me just say this, Victor. I trust I trust life. I really do, and I really do. I really do. I really trust that life evolves in the right way, and then if we pay attention, will fulfill for what we are here for, and this is an evolving concept, and but it's very beautiful to feel like that you're trying to do something that is who you are, and even if you are in the intent. And so it's not about getting to the summit, it's about climbing. It's about keep climbing, keep going. And, so that's why, I mean, but I don't know.
But there's someone here that's interested in building a team, and they're saying, well, if you were to start to build your lab from scratch, how do you go about doing that? To get to the point where you're talking about we all care about each other and so forth.
Well, you need to have this sense of connection with the first person, and it doesn't need to be the smart test or it's a sense of connection, and you that in your inner heart saying, I can work with this person. I feel like I can work with this person. So so we need to be very careful about our connection, collaboration, and because everything is about the team. And so the thing is, so my recommendation is very deep, as much as you can, knowledge of that, person that you bring in. Make sure that you express yourself about what you want to do, and that there's communion into that. I think everything starts there. I think that's what.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard. I mean, just during our conversation, I had in my own computer multiple alarms alerting me of different things that are coming up, and there's a lot of a lot of things competing for our attention, a lot of things trying to take us away from the present. And it's incredibly challenged. I have two more questions, Roberto. One, with all that openness to the present moment and that generosity, um, for you, you take care of patients directly. You might have found yourself in a situation where, in taking care of a patient, with you completely open, this was a a hard, difficult, emotionally challenging experience. How do you handle that? Is there something that comes to mind in relation to that particular situation?
Uh, Thank you for the question. I think it's very appropriate because the thing is that we handle the patient as a team. I cannot really say how many times my assistant helped me a lot in the care of my patient, in the nitty gritty of things. I mean, yeah, of course I wouldn't be willing to actually do 20 phone calls to the pharmacy, to the insurance, and so we need to make sure we have a proper network. So the physician assistant that work with us, the nurse that work with us, our secretaries, and us. So we are all in that sharing of that sometimes burden, because we're talking about, yes, kind of identify things of breathlessness, so I'm talking about all this behavior change, but there is life too. The life that you're talking about is that 20 phone calls that need to be answered, and so we need to have a way to share that, and the burden need to be light, not overwhelming, because when the burden is overwhelming, people get burned out.
Hmm. That's the essence of our minimally disruptive medicine approach, and of this series, of this CareCast focus on care that fits. We've been talking to Roberto Benzo, and we've learned quite a bit, Roberto, about you, about what animates you, about what animates your work, about the challenge, how central to your work is authenticity, how central to your work is generosity. It's been an absolute delight to chat with you. I have one last question to close this CareCast with you, Roberto, and to thank you for it. What's next for Roberto Benzo?
Uh, okay, here it is. Is for what now for Roberto Benzo? So whatever is going on now is the foundation of my future. I really, it's like it's bringing me to the what now? What now? What actually entertaining? How different is my grief right now? How different is my passion right now? What is that take me? It's like the stream, It's the I don't push the river. I let the river just go into its own course. So the thing is that, yeah, so if I actually pay attention to it, I mean, I think that it will take me to the next step pleasantly, pleasantly. And I don't think too much on 2030. I think about 2020. And I really want to kind of get with everything, every cell of my body. How much are we changing our life, everybody, because of something that we never thought possible, COVID. So the thing is that this should be a wake-up call that kind of we just need to be attentive, because we probably need very quick changes. And the last thing I want to say, Victor, is this. We need research that is done quickly, and it will be done so we can actually provide answers quickly to respond to the needs now. So that's why I think NIH is changing to that kind of shorter hours, kind of to be able to actually respond quickly to the needs of the now. So what now is the thing, not what next.
So what's next for Roberto Benzo is what is now.
Yeah.
Roberto, what a wonderful, wonderful conversation. It's been absolutely lovely. I've enjoyed myself tremendously. Your presence through it and your generosity in answering the questions of those who join us today has been a demonstration of the words that you shared with us today. Thank you again for coming. Thanks everyone who joined us live. And if you're listening or watching this afterwards, thank you for your attention. Don't miss the next CareCast, produced by the Knowledge and Evaluation Research Unit at Mayo Clinic. And please take care.
Thank you so much.